Some people just want to go to cinema to have fun. They don't want to be challenged. They just want to eat popcorn and enjoy a ride like a roller coaster. Um, I do want to challenge the audience, not with things that I have answers for, but questions that that I'm wrestling with. Chiefly for me, meaning it's just, sometimes I do think work is like therapy. Um, and there was something in that story that I felt like I needed to cathartically sort of exorcise. That phone call in the end for me, I don't know. Can't even logically or rationally tell you why it moved me the first time. I sort of realized that this was going on, but misunderstood characters, which is sort of Vitali's character, is something I really gravitate towards and I'm really moved by. And for some reason, I can't even peel back the layers of why. But those sort of characters are often, I mean, with different shades and different colors and different personalities. But those sort of characters are characters I'm often drawn to. So chiefly, it's for me, and it's idiosyncratically so, just in the way that film is also even crafted. And then I think, secondly, I mean, hopefully, uh, to the people of Ukraine who sort of, even through proxy, through their family members or family members of family members that have sort of lived through elements of that. I mean, chiefly even for my cast and crew, um, who have lived through, Marta, the lead actress in the film who plays Yeva, her apartment was wrecked in Kiev during the during the invasion. So I think in some ways it's also probably for them. But I won't lie. Like when I make a film, and every time I make a film, um, I sort of first go at it thinking, what does it mean to me? I think I need to be better to sort of like make a film for a broader audience, but it's not often my first thought. I, I
Mhm.
probably, I probably, I probably tend to the former, but need to tend to the latter. In
Mhm.
some ways, I feel like um, I have to get out of my mind sometimes, where I tend to the latter, where I tend to, oh no, this is, it's meaningful and it's like a spiritual exercise, which I think sort of I get in my head sometimes, and I sort of cease uh, being in my body, meaning I cease to actually sometimes do the work. I think about it too much in some ways,
Mhm.
and I get in my head and I don't actually action it. So I could be writing way more, but sometimes I think about it too much. I'm too heady. So in that way, I need to take it less seriously, perhaps less seriously in here and more seriously in here. So it's
Mhm.
like it needs to go from the intellect part of me and sort of more into my spirit, where it's like less is said about it and more is just done about it. I feel like I really trust my audience, but I mean, one of the things that I did with this film when we were in the edit, I spent a lot of time going back and forth, trying to figure out how much information to give to the audience because um, the film is sort of there's layers that are being unpeeled as you go along, um, and I sort of wanted the film to sort of the emotional effect of the film to sort of really ring true once you hear that final phone call, and for the audience to sort of try and put the pieces together as the film was unspooling in front of them. Um, uh, but there was a big question about how much information is too little information. I think sometimes uh, I tend to think the audience, or I tend to think the audience is as into film as I am and really likes to be engaged as an active participant. as opposed to likes to be fed. And, I think that's also just different sensibilities, European and I think Slavic sensibilities or Soviet sensibilities tend to leave a little restrained, so leave a little less for the audience so that they are engaged more. And the American sensibility is probably to give a little more. But I'll also say, like, I think that part of that is also just me as a filmmaker learning the craft a little bit better and trying to figure out how to just um, do that better, like ride that very fine line a little bit better. But I have recognized that it's highly subjective. Like some people like to do more active participation and trying to figure it out, and other people like to be fed more. I mean, it's a big thing because for me, obviously, just so you know, like when this film came out, sorry, when we started working on this film, one of our key references was Son of Saul. Not necessarily audibly, but just conceptually, there was the idea that um, you the audience is not going to see what's outside the frame all that much. And so much is going to be hidden, even maybe within the frame. It's going to be below the frame, to the left of the frame. So like for instance, you don't really see bodies throughout the film because I didn't want to, it's such a sensitive story that I think part of what I just didn't want to show bodies gratuitously. So even when you see the body in the end, it's sort of at a distance. And it's something I didn't want to show. Part of that was to sort of I didn't want to retread trauma for people that have sort of lived through it. And then secondly is a little bit more conceptual. I wanted the audience's mind to sort of activate and sort of wonder what was going on. And so Zone of Interest did that, and that sort of came out. Our film was done; it had already been in festivals, and I saw they sort of employed the same thing. It's like they made two films. They made the visual film, and then they made the sonic film. To some extent, we sort of embraced a similar methodology. As I just wanted to, for me, it was more that I wanted to paint. I wanted to paint the tonal picture of the world outside the frame of the film, and so that I think in Zone of Interest they portray something quite specific, meaning there are people dying just on the other side of these walls. But for me, it was a little bit more open-ended. I want the audience to sort of be led down different trails of what happened. They don't know what happened, and they're trying to figure out, oh, was it a nuclear disaster? Is there, like there could be many different sort of many different narrative threads that the audience could sort of like run through. And so in some ways you're almost thinking, is this like a sci-fi? Is this almost like a Tarkovskian, Stalker-esque story? And part of that sort of intentional. I wanted the audience to go sort of on different rabbit trails, and then sort of as the film sort of progressed, then this like wide breadth of possibilities sort of gets funneled into, oh no, they're talking very specifically about an event. A plane crash was mentioned right towards the end when you hear him sort of talking to himself and trying to learn the language, and then at the end, sort of all the puzzle pieces fall together. So sound was really important to paint a picture for the audience that their interpretation, their sort of imagination could sort of color in, and in some ways even potentially lead them astray. And that was sort of part of it too. Like for me, a big one are books. So I'm like, wow, looking at my wife, she sometimes gets a little bit annoyed with the amount of books that I buy. And often I'll just sort of like skim. Hold on, I'll show you sort of like often what I do. Um, and these all sort of speak to like different interests of mine, but like I've been very much into like the UFO phenomenon that's happened, like especially since 2017. I did a music video for a band called Aya, where I sort of the opening image is actually this image, and I'm really sort of fascinated by the intersection of like science, science fiction, spirituality, and yeah, I mean science, yes, science fiction and spirituality. And then this is just a book that I bought. It's about Ukrainian artists. Um, uh, that's really beautiful. I mean, it includes everything from photography and um, I mean, yeah, there's just so many cool things in there. But the reason I bought that book is because really I was interested in this book, um, which I found online just like doing research about this sacred, the sacred art. And I've been really sort of like, I found this book, the same person that put this book together, the curator, also put this book together. And so that sort of led me down a path. And then I also just sometimes I just buy, a book of short stories. And there's like every year, these guys put out a compilation of short stories, just trying to look for things that sort of speak to me and that I can adapt. But I mean, that's, down at the bottom there, it's like all my books. And I have like, another space where we store books and just trying to search for ideas and things that move me. Like this one image that sort of got me on the hunt, for all of this. There was an image during the first couple of days of the invasion of Ukraine of all these people taking down a statue of Christ, and that statue of Christ in the city of Lviv, on the western side of Ukraine. That statue had only been taken down twice, or once before, actually. The last time was during World War II, when they were trying to protect it for safekeeping. So, and that photo went viral. Like so many people sent it to me. I got it from so many people. I was like, oh man, there's a story in there that I want to go digging for. So yeah, it can be many different areas, but to me, it tends to now be literary, or an image that then evokes something literary, that invokes some sort of deep dive.
Вы будете обследовать участок по другим координатам. И раз некоторые из вас, судя по всему, не слышали в последний раз, пожалуйста, не забывайте подвязывать белые флажки к колышкам, ведь их проще заметить. И позвольте снова напомнить вам, прошедшее в поле нельзя обсуждать дома. Ваша семья не должна знать, чем вы занимаетесь.
Почему именно мы должны это делать?
Да, почему?
Если не мы, то кто?
Ну мы шахтеры, мы не солдаты.
Солдаты слишком заняты, отстреливая протестующих.
Это да.
Простите, пора выдвигаться.
Пошли, мужики.